Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us, Mitch. Welcome to
Hello.
our second Instagram live session with Support Room. My name is Asma and I'm the therapist consultant at Support Room. And as you know, a lot of you would know that we have these sessions to talk about all things mental health and talk to people around their personal experiences and current topics around mental health. Today, we're really lucky to have Mitch joining us. Mitch is a
Hello.
YouTuber and a mental health advocate. Thank you so much for joining us, Mitch.
Thank you
How
for
are you?
having me.
So we want to cover a couple of topics today, with some current topics that are relevant. We want to talk about unemployment, new students, new graduates and unemployment during this time, and isolation during lockdown, and touch on social media. So we're so excited to have you today, Mitch.
I'm really
Can
excited
you
to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Mitch and I am a 2-1 Media Culture and Communications graduate. So I graduated from Liverpool John Moores University in 2019. And since then, I had just been trying to find a job, trying to find full-time employment. And this is how, the topics we're going to discuss today is like how difficult it is and how straining it is on your mental health, trying to find a job. And so I thought to myself, I would like to have a hobby. And so that is how I started my YouTube channel. So I started it a year ago, towards the end of September. And I thought to myself, I want to make the most of my time whilst I'm unemployed, kind of find a way to utilize my degree. So camera work, editing, film, that type of stuff. And then at least on my CV, it's not like a gap in my CV. It's something that's there. And during the time that I've been searching for work, I'm still doing something.
Yeah.
And now it's become probably one of my favorite things to do now that I've taken it a lot more seriously. And luckily, it's now turned into a hobby that's kind of a paid hobby, I guess.
That's lucky. That's great. That's great that you've kind of thought of a way to utilize that time. I mean, it's a really difficult time, isn't it, for all, uncertainties and anxieties about health concerns, ourselves and others. With your kind of peer group, is that what everyone's doing then, trying to utilize that time to kind of, instead of having that idle, just sitting at home? What are your thoughts, and how has this impacted your mental health?
I think going on to about like my friends, I know so many of my friends that have started online businesses, blogs, becoming like a YouTuber, like looking to make videos. And I think that's the most that we can do during this time. And I was saying to my boyfriend, actually, we can never get this time back. So the time that we have now, like, it sucks that we may be like in isolation or some of us are in lockdown, but it's like we need to make the most of the time because we won't get this time back. So it's kind of like, if you wanted to pick up a hobby of, I don't know, learning a new language, you should definitely do it during the time that you have. Like, you'll never get this free time. And I think during the lockdown, I have learned so much more about myself, and I've learned, to deal with things better, if that makes sense. I think at the start of the lockdown, the first one in the UK, I was very like aware that I was upset, and I was constantly living day by day like, this is horrible, like I'm really upset, until I chose to change my mindset. And I chose it to be, I'm not going to get the time back. I have to make the most out of it. Let me learn something new. Let me do something new. And like I said, like, a lot of my fellow graduates are doing the same thing. My best friend Maria has just made a hampers business, and it's all online. She like set up an Instagram for it, a website, and necessarily that wasn't her degree, but she's found a way to learn how to make a website, learn how to make a business like social page. And I think that's what we all need to do. We need to,
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Even though, like, particularly during this time, a lot of people have gone to university and studied their niche kind of subjects, and they're coming out of university and not going into their professions because there's no jobs. And
Yeah.
you've taken a really positive stance to this, and I think it's fantastic. But
Thank you.
what advice would you give to people who aren't in that same mindset as you? How can they help themselves to kind of stop and kind of take that time and think inwards and move forward?
I think for sure, I'm not saying it was like an overnight process where I was suddenly like, oh, this is great. I'm now going to become a lot more positive in my day-to-day life and I'm going to choose to do this. It definitely took time. And I think the most important thing is to speak to your friends and your family and those that are going to support you in whatever you do, because they could even have great ideas to input in what you're looking to do. They might even find resources for what you want to do. I know some of my friends are doing like separate online courses now, like as an addition to get like a certificate for their CV. And I think we just need to be committed to what we're going to do. I think especially when I started making videos online, I was like, oh, nothing's going to come of it. But then I think with the dedication where I was like, well, I have to keep going. Like I can't just stop now, because then I'd never know what could have happened. And so I think
taking that risk, isn't it? It's just taking that plunge and taking that risk.
Yeah.
So good for you. That's great. I mean, it's motivation as well, isn't it? It's that what keeps you motivated.
Yeah. I think for me especially, I was very set in my mind that I wanted to do my 3 years at uni. I wanted to come out with my degree and I wanted to get a job. I was so work focused, I guess you could say. I was so like, I need to do this, this, and this, get these grades, and then I can get the job I want. And obviously that was kind of your uni student mind talking to you, when really that isn't the real world. And that's not how it works. Just because I have the piece of paper doesn't give me the means to get the job.
So times, I think more so. I mean, I remember when my generation, when we finished uni, we think we get that degree piece of paper and that's it. We're going straight into it, and we realise that there's so much more to do. We've got to either carry on studying or get that experience. But now more so, we're in a lockdown. It's a time where people are losing jobs, and it's just keeping that positivity going. And do you think universities are supporting students during this time? What social support are students getting?
So I graduated from Liverpool John Moores, so that's like the most I could speak on a uni. And I know that their careers team, even if you've graduated, you can always access their help. So if you needed them to look at your CV, or you needed them to help you look at a job application, you can always email them and they can always help you. However, I don't really use it because I'm in that position where I'm kind of like nervous. I'm kind of nervous to say, oh, I'm looking to apply for this job, like, can I have help here, A, B, and C? And it's kind of maybe just my anxiety playing up, because I feel that I don't want to ask them for all this help and then I don't get the job, and then I feel like maybe I didn't make the use of their time.
But again, going back to touching on topics of the actual process of getting to the stage to ask for help. You've got to be in that mind frame to do that. But people are out there to support, and I'm really pleased to hear that universities are offering that type of support, because it's a big deal, I think, particularly for young people who don't know what's out there in the big bad world, and their expectations are so much more different to what reality is, particularly right now. But are there do you know people, obviously you don't need to mention names, do you know people who are in a situation where they don't have that kind of drive or that motivation to do something different? And how is it impacting their mental health?
For sure. I think there are a lot of my friends who have stuck to that one degree, and they have their mindset on, I've worked so hard, which obviously naturally they've worked so hard for that degree, and then there's no jobs in that area and there's no prospects, but they're still kind of set on, no, it's fine, I'm gonna strive to get that. And I really do respect that, but it does take a toll on your mental health because you're not willing to open up to other jobs possibly that could be slightly linked, not the exact job you want, but kind of linked. And I think it really does take a toll on people because obviously that's years of work.
Impacting their self-esteem and kind of that, you know, oh, can I do this? Am I, you know, am I worth it? Or, you know, am I good enough? And it is very, very difficult, isn't it, for all of us to kind of go through that. I want to kind of go on to your, I'm very interested in your channel and your YouTube channel. I've seen some of your videos, and I know that, you know, you're an advocate for positive mental health, and I absolutely love that, because even though, you know, you talk about fashion and beauty, you're really insightful and you talk about yourself quite a lot, and I love that because I think it's so nice as a role model on social media that you are so open. But I just wanted to kind of touch a little bit on social media and the effects that, or the influence that it has on people, particularly on their mental health, the negatives and the positives. I just wanted to get your take on that.
So obviously we have the main positives where, you know, we can connect with people more than we could have even 20 years ago. You know, I actually recently found a childhood best friend through Instagram, and we hadn't spoken since we were about 8 years old. So that's one of the positives. And obviously, especially now during lockdown, we can FaceTime our friends, Zoom call our family members. We can have that face-to-face conversation without really being with them. But then I think the negatives are, it makes us overthink. Social media in general, every time I post something, I will overthink it to death. You know, I will look at a picture I want to post and I'll look at it so much that I'll be like, I don't want to post it anymore. It's now I don't like it. And it's because I'm worried what other people are going to think. And I think it's the fact that when we post something online and your account's public, obviously everyone's going to see. Therefore, it gives everyone the chance to kind of judge you. And from my like Instagram analytics, for example, I can see if someone saved my picture or sent it to someone. And every time I see that those are quite high, I'm like, oh my God, why did they send those to their friends? Maybe it's something bad, but also it could be something good. So I think you just have to have quite thick skin if you're thinking of, you know, posting things. And I know it's bad to say that, oh, you know, I always think the worst, that, oh, it could be this. But I think it's because the internet is such a scary place sometimes, because people can be so judgmental because they can hide behind the screen. They can be on private accounts. They could be on like anonymous accounts, and they can say what they want, you know?
And what about people who are vulnerable, like people who have anxiety or people whose self-esteem is quite low, and the effect of having those comments could be really detrimental, couldn't it? Do you think, I mean, obviously, just generally speaking, that there's enough done by kind of social media account managers or whatever to protect, you know, influencers or bloggers or YouTube, you know, YouTubers from this?
I think it's always really hard because sometimes when comments are getting filtered out, let's say for example on YouTube, they have like a spam and then they have like a likely spam, and it's so hard, I think, for the actual platform to filter it out, because sometimes the things that are in my spam are actually nice comments. And I think that's why it's hard when it's not actual people looking through everything and sorting things out. And I also think now, especially with like the rise of social media, technology, electronics, there's obviously a lot more in schools about internet safety, online safety, because the internet is constantly changing. So the online safety that I had when I was in primary school, when I was in high school, is completely different now. Which I think is good because it's constantly being updated, so then the youth can understand this happens and this happens and this is how you can stop it. I think it's really important.
And it's raising that awareness of actually there are negatives and positives, because actually going back to there's a lot of positives. I know, I mean obviously I've been working in mental health for a long time, since I graduated or even before so, and you know, it wasn't spoken about as much as is nowadays. And I think actually social media has a lot to do with that. It is a
Yeah.
platform to raise awareness for, you know, taboo subjects. And, you know, as much as there is that negative side of it, we can also see that positive side of it, as people can relate to people who are open and going through these things. And
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot to say for that. Now, the digital world, it's changing everything, isn't it? Things are much more faster, and
Yeah.
people have access to much more information. So 100% there's negatives and positives. Just, I mean, from you as an active member, I mean, how has that impacted you? I know you've spoken a little bit about feeling, you know, you may be feeling judged sometimes when you post something, and I think that's so relatable. We all feel like that. But has there been anything in particular that sticks out for you with your experience as being, you know, a social media personality?
I think sometimes with having everything online, so my boyfriend is the same, like he's a YouTuber and his life is online. And I think sometimes it's so hard for audience members to understand the fine line between what I'm posting and private life. And I think sometimes people will ask us really, really personal questions where maybe it's the internet etiquette, maybe it's not made clear that maybe you shouldn't ask things like that. Just because I'm happy to post these things doesn't mean you can ask these things about my life. And I think sometimes people get very invested in people's personal lives. You know, I'm not just saying mine, you know, a lot of other people suffer the same, where people, I think they feel like they need to know everything at all times. So they'll want to know, you know, what's happening with so and so, what happened with this, what happened with that. And it's like, these are private things, you know, even though
There's
my
no
life may be
boundaries.
public.
There's no
Yeah,
boundaries. Mm.
exactly.
That's
So
very interesting. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of stick into the topic, or going back to the topic of lockdown. I know you've said that it sounds like you really utilised your time really well by starting a business, and, you know, we've got to take things day by day.
yeah.
What's the first thing you're going to do when soon the lockdown kind of eases up?
Oh, I can't wait to just see my friends properly, you know, give them all a big hug and just hang out, do everything. I said to my boyfriend, I was like, we need to go bowling, and then we'll go for mini golf, and then let's go to the cinema. I was like, we need to go to like all the places that we couldn't go.
Yeah, yeah. Same. I would be doing this. I'll be flying back home. That's what I would be doing.
Yeah.
And then also, obviously, you know, at Support Room, we are a new way of connecting with therapists by messaging therapy. Obviously, we're moving away from the traditional form of therapy of going to a clinic and kind of having that instant support. Do you have any views on that? What's your take of this new form of kind of messaging or digital therapy that we're offering?
I think it's personally great. I think if we're trying to talk about during now, obviously no one can go out and seek help, you know, and I'm sure there's so many people that are at home that have been either classed under the vulnerable like section for lockdown, so they weren't allowed to even go out for a walk and they weren't allowed to see anybody. And I think whenever they're feeling anxious or upset, it's always good to have like the ongoing therapy that you have online. It's very easy to message. But I think as well, even when you're going traditionally to a therapist, you may be fine in the session, and then maybe on your way home or on the bus something happened and you know you had a bit of anxiety, and then it's kind of like, oh, you would like to turn the bus around and go back and speak to the therapist, but you know you can't, and they've got schedules. So I think it's really good to have everything online and just be able to talk through everything. But I also feel that sometimes people, well, it's either one of two ways. People are either more communicative if they can speak like personally like this, but some people prefer to just type and get their words out, their emotions out. Sometimes that's easier for people to do that way.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, it's a nice fine balance between video therapy and message therapy. And I think you hit the nail there, because it's that instant access that we're living in such a fast paced world, and our life is like, you know, minute to minute changing, and our
Yeah.
feelings down. And sometimes, particularly during these times, you know, you're doubtful actually. It's that doubt and that, hang on, having that someone there as that reassurance actually can make a massive difference. Well, thank you very much, Mitch. It's been absolutely a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for being so insightful into your world. And just like to say thanks to everybody for listening and tuning in. Remember, you know, it's always good to talk about your feelings. And, you know, we're here for you at Support Room. You know, drop us a line, drop us a text, please interact with us. We're always here to listen. And again, thank you so much, Mitch, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.